Hello, this is Tim with FECTalk.com, and this is going to be our first podcast recording, and my very special guest on this one is going to be Mr. Brian Duke from Semnox. He is an industry pioneer and legend. Brian, thank you for coming to the show.
Well, thank you, Tim. I appreciate it, and the compliment as well.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, sir. So, you have a rich history in the industry. Now, you're a young man, but when you were younger, so where did you grow up, Brian?
Well, I grew up in California. Early part of my life was down in Southern California, and then we moved up to San Jose, and I lived there and started working in the industry in the Bay Area, and then moved to Denver about 20 years ago and have lived here ever since.
Okay, so when you were growing up in California, you didn't jump right into the industry, did you? You had some just regular jobs before you got into the fun stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I was one of those people who loved video games. I loved the home stuff, but the arcade was really what I was into. And so it's funny, after getting paychecks on a Friday, I didn't go join my friends for drinks and stuff at the bar. I would go to Aladdin's Castle or some of the other places and play video games. And it was really cool being in the heart of where everything was happening and where all the action was. I mean, Nolan Bushnell was in the area, and Atari, and all the games and such. And in fact, I was working at CF Air Freight, and I was a manager in a call center, and I used to go on down to the cafe that was down below because they had a Ms. Pac-Man and a Galaga there. And every week they would have a high score winner get a pitcher of beer. So if you won each of them, then you had a couple pitchers of beer, and I could bring all of the people down from my group in order to have beer on Friday before I took off for Aladdin's Castle. And so it was funny. One day I was down there. I just happened to go on down to get a drink and head back on up. And I noticed that somebody had beaten both my scores. Uh-oh. So I sat down, got the high score on the Ms. Pac-Man, and then I got the high score on the Galaga right when the president of the company walked on in. And he's like, Brian, what are you doing down here instead of up in your office where you're supposed to be? And that's when it sort of pushed me into looking for another job, because I figured that next Monday I was going to be in big trouble. So I answered an ad actually in the paper. Universal USA, which had Mr. Do,
okay,
for their big hit, they had an ad in the paper that just said that they were hiring new salespeople. So I called in sick on Monday, and I showed up for the job interview and talked with them. And partway through the interview, the guy got called away and said, well, we got the new game in the back over there that's going to be coming on out later on this year. You might as well play that for a little while. And literally 2 hours later, they hired me because I got to levels they had never seen before.
Oh, wow.
And it was a terrific game. It was the type of game, I liken it to gymnastics. You know, you can do a cartwheel, I can do flips. You have a lot of fun. If you were scored by the judges, you get a 5 or a 6. I'm trying for that perfect 10. That's
Okay.
the way the game was built. You and I could both play it, have a lot of fun, have completely different scores, but want to keep on playing it and over and over. And that was the not only the introduction for me into the industry, but it was the first kit to be sold and be successful. There were a lot of other kits that were being sold, but it was mostly games that were garbage that couldn't sell as a dedicated. Universal's problem was nobody trusted them because the parallel boards kept coming in from Japan. And that's probably not a term that a lot of people understand, but it was the Japanese games that were sold overseas, usually a month before they sold them into the U.S., as a complete game or something, and they would send these used boards in. The Japanese were used to playing the games for a month and then on to the next thing. So they would send all these used boards into the U.S., and it would ruin the market for the dedicated that were being sold here in the United States by the manufacturer that represented that product here in the U.S., in this case, Universal USA.
So that was the first kit? I mean, because I recall...
It was the first kit to be successful.
Okay.
All the other ones, there were ones like Pop Flamer.
Sure.
There were ones like other games that were pure garbage.
And they drowned in obscurity now.
Exactly. And so you don't really remember them. We sold literally 20,000 of the kits. And it all began by a company that long ago went out of business. There was a distributorship in Cleveland area that was called Monroe Distributing. And very first trip I ever took, did you know Norm Goldstein?
I did not.
Okay. Norm Goldstein, I sit down with him. And I start going through the presentation of our game, and I'm talking all about it and how great it is and how much fun it is and everything. And he's literally sitting there behind this desk that is at least twice as high as where I'm seated in a chair that just, the kind that eats you,
Sure.
where you just sort of slink into it. And I'm looking up at him. And he's opening his mail while I'm talking. And he's checking it and tossing stuff away and writing down notes and doing other stuff like this and really not paying attention. And finally he goes, "Brian, are you finished?" And I went, I guess so. And he goes, "I wouldn't buy your game if it was a #1 game in the country. You guys have taken all the profit out of it. You've screwed us over with these parallels and da-da-da-da-da." And he rails on me literally for half an hour. And then at the end of it, he goes, "Well, I'm all done. Are you hungry now?" And I'm like, "No." And I mean, this is my first trip. And what was really funny about it was he started talking about, he got off the parallels and started talking about kits. And that if we would sell kits, we'd be a lot better off and they'd be more profitable. And he could put them into all the old wood that he was stuck with from Universal that he couldn't sell. So I go back and at that time, Bill Cravens, he was my mentor in the industry. Bill Cravens was a great guy, great marketer, great salesperson, really knew how to get small companies off the ground. And that was his forte. So I come back and I tell him, well, the guy was talking about kits. And he goes, "Really?" And I said, "What are kits?" And he explained it all to me. It was just basically you take the boards and the wiring harness and stuff, and you can convert an old Pac-Man or something into a new game and at a fraction of the cost. And I said, well, that's interesting. Well, that's what he wants to buy. And he goes, "Well, how much would he pay for them?" And I said, I really didn't talk to him about it because I didn't know what we were talking about. And so I went back to him And we started discussing it, and he finally settled on $500 a board. And I told Bill, and Bill goes, yeah, let's do it. So he was actually the first one that I sold any kits to. And
awesome.
Literally, he was our distributor of the year. He moved 2,000 kits himself.
Wow.
And while everybody else was wondering whether the game was going to be any good, he was making lots of money. And that's when I learned a very valuable lesson.
Okay, what was that lesson, Brian?
It was salesmanship begins when the customer says no.
Absolutely.
And just because they rail on you, just because they yell at you, just because they say there's no way in heck that they'll buy your game, doesn't mean that that's really what's going to happen. And that guy that got all over my case, sight unseen, I mean, we had never met before, and this was the treatment. But he became a good friend. They became a great distributor of mine. I spent a lot of time up there working with them, and I learned that that's an even more valuable customer than the person that likes your stuff. Right. And if you can sell them, you can sell anybody.
You got it. And there's a lot of people, they're no frills, like me, you know me. I'm unique when it comes to buying, but I tell you, once you got me convinced, you prove it to me. You know me, I'm 100% Brian now.
I appreciate that, and it's interesting. We have customers that are easy to sell and customers that are hard to sell. And I've always found the ones that were hardest to sell are the ones that will talk you up more than the one that just immediately fell in love with your stuff. Especially with questions, with putting your feet to the fire and testing you on things, asking questions more than once to see if you get the same answer. This industry has such a wide range of people that it's been so much fun working together with. I have a lot of friends, and yeah, there were people that I wouldn't want to sit down and have dinner with or drinks and such in the past, but I learned how to get along with them because it's so important. There's so many different people in this industry, and you have to be able to meet all of their demands and all of their requirements, or you're not going to be successful in this industry. If all you can do is sell a number one game, you're not going to last in this industry.
Right.
We did not have a number one game. We had a good value for it, and it was putting together the right program that appealed to distribution to where we became the game of the year, even though we weren't the best.
Right, and it's like real estate. You take somebody, you take them to the first house. There's people like me that, well, I want to see the next 20 houses. I'm high maintenance. But there are those people that fall in love with the first house you take them to. And what I really like about you, Brian, is you help them. This was what makes you a good salesman and a man of integrity, is that you tell them, look at the other things first. That way you're doing your due diligence. And then come back to me when you're ready, and here we go. That's what I really like about you. I've seen you do that quite a bit.
Yeah, and isn't it funny, too, in real estate, you were talking about how many people go, oh, it's got to have a pool.
Right.
I've got to have 4 bedrooms. I've got to have a huge backyard. And then they end up getting a condo or something that they fell in love with. A lot of times what people think that they want, until you really show them everything, really don't realize what else is out there. They're just going based upon what they think or hear or have been told by others.
Right.
And then they see things and they go, oh, vaulted ceilings. I got to have vaulted ceilings.
Yeah.
This other thing has everything I want, but it doesn't have vaulted ceilings. And vaulted ceilings all of a sudden become the most important thing, too.
What do you mean that that pool has to be maintained? Yeah, or it turns into a frog pond. Yep.
Exactly. And there's so many times that people don't realize what goes into it. You know, it's like the people that buy a boat, and then they say the happiest 2 days of a person's life that owns a boat is the day that they buy it and the day that they sell it.
Right.
And, you know, pools, a lot of maintenance.
Absolutely.
And then you end up inviting friends on over and neighbors, and they're using it more than you are.
Yep. Tell them to break a bucket of cleaner with them. So, Brian, one of the things that goes synonymous with your name, and this is like one of the most popular games, is the Street Fighter 2, right? Weren't you heavily involved in that?
Yeah, it was great. You know, Bill was not only my mentor, he was my boss at 4 different companies. Okay. He hired me away from Universal. Sure. He went to Nintendo, hired me there, and then he left to go to Capcom, and he hired me away from Nintendo. And it was a good thing he did, because literally 6 months after I left, they had brought out the PlayChoice 10, and I saw the writing on the wall with that. It was basically Nintendo home games on a timer basis, which is never a good recipe for success in the industry. It was cheap, but after I left, they closed out the whole coin-op division. I'm sorry, what?
That PlayerChoice 10 in Nintendo. That wasn't 10 cartridges. What they would do is they would have like a little expansion slots and a little board for each game. Is that correct?
No, it actually was 10 cartridges, and they were the same Nintendo home cartridges that at that time you could buy in Japan.
Okay.
And I got to admit, I'm one of my do-overs in life might be when Mr. Awakawa said, "Hey, Brian, would you like to sell the Nintendo home system?" And I went, Mr. A, everybody has old Ataris gathering dust in their attics. You know, the future's in coin-op. Well, maybe not money-wise, but I sure love the industry, and I'm glad I stayed in it instead of jumping ship. Most of the people I know that did go into the consumer side, yeah, they're multimillionaires, they're retired and such, but they're completely outside of the industry, and this is the one that I really grew to know and love. But yeah, it was, the PlayChoice 10 was an interesting project, and it was before the Nintendo NES system was launched. So we had a lot of games in there. We sold Super Mario as a coin-op game, but then they got tired of doing the all the necessary work to convert a home game into an arcade game.
Sure. I think one of the one of the good marketing things I thought about that PlayerChoice 10 was you could go, and if they had that cartridge that you were on the fence about buying for the home system, you could play it in there for a couple quarters and see if you liked the game.
Well, the cost of it, too. Those cartridges were $225 each.
Wow.
So you could literally add 2 or 3 new games every few months or every couple months or every 30 days. And it would breathe new life in it for a fraction of the cost of what a conversion kit was. And all it was unplugging the old one and plugging in a new one, and you got that now on your system.
Wow.
So it was a brilliant idea, and if they hadn't come out with a Nintendo home system, it probably would still be something that Nintendo was doing today. But Bill told me what was coming and said, nope, they're going to do away with the system. Yeah. And I laughed and I said, no, they won't. And sure enough, they did.
They made the right choice.
Yes. Well, Capcom, the neat thing is I learned an awful lot more there about management, about working together, not only with distributors, but how to manage things when you've got a big hit, because just as many headaches when you've got garbage to sell as when you've got the hottest game that everybody in the world wants. And we had a bunch of closeouts when I started there, and we closed them out, and they wanted to give us a bonus. And Bill said, if any of you accept a penny of that bonus, you will not be working for me tomorrow.
Wow.
And we said, but they're offering it to us. And he says, yeah, but when the company makes money, we will all make money. And I will guarantee you that is coming shortly. And you know what? He was right. They had us on commission basis. And the first year that they had the Street Fighter II out, I made more money than the president of the company.
Wow. That's
and
amazing.
They literally cut the commission in half, from 2% to 1%. And the next year, I made $5,000 less than I made the previous year at 2%.
Wow, that's awesome.
But the thing that they thought was, this game will sell itself. Games do not sell itself. The importance of a salesperson that knows the value of it can push a customer to buy more than what they are ordering. I had to say to them, when people go, oh, I'll take 100. Well, right now I'm 2,000 back ordered just in my area. And we're not getting enough of them in stock. So if I give you a percentage, you'll probably get somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 20. You really should increase your order, and you can't back out of it. It's not something where you come back and say, I'm canceling this order. We need a purchase order for it, but I'll make certain you get a better supply. And because if you didn't have that game, there were a lot of people that couldn't clean up their accounts receivable because everybody that had the game available was demanding cash. And so it was a great thing to learn how to keep people happy when you had all the big boys that were ordering the large quantities, and I took care of the smaller guys as well. They didn't get nearly as many, but percentage-wise, I helped them.
And they added up.
And we had a really good run at Capcom. It was, I spent 10 years there in total, and then they decided to move all the sales back to Chicago. I didn't want to do that. And that's when I ended up leaving the company and going to work at a redemption company.
Okay. So how long?
So I got some good experience in a lot of different areas. I've been on the vending side, even had my own cotton candy vending machine company. And while none of these things were successes long term, taught me a lot, taught me to think about things that are unanticipated, that
Sure.
can happen,
Sure.
that can sink you. It was almost like walking through minefields and not knowing where the mines were.
So this cotton candy business that you started, so what was that? It was like a vending machine that it was a no one had to be there. You just put money in and it made a cotton candy on a stick for you?
Exactly.
Okay.
And what's funny is I had brought another one in from Europe, and I had brought it in a few years before that, and I spent some time helping them get established here in the U.S. But they had a situation where they were, with their sticks, they were using very small, less expensive sticks, but the cotton candy wasn't sticking to it, so they needed something to stick to it, so they devised water dripping on a stick.
Okay.
And it would drop 3 or 4 drips of water on it, and then the cotton candy would stick to it and it would build up very nicely. But the problem with that was, if one, the water didn't work, then you had a stick come on out, and people didn't like spending $2 or $3 for just a paper stick.
Right.
But the funny thing is that even though it worked, you had warm water inside of a machine. And I'm one of those people that if I leave bottled water out on the counter overnight, I don't drink it the next day because of what might grow in it, especially if it's warm.
Right.
And you got a heat producing machine that makes cotton candy, and it comes on out. So there were inherent problems with it, which is why it didn't sell big. So one of my customers told me, "Have you heard about this machine from China?" And I went, "No, I haven't at all." And he told me about it, and he said, "I'm looking to invest in that and try to bring it to the U.S." And I became partners with him. I thought I had everything covered. We secured it. I went to Rome, saw it at a trade show, got it before a company here in the United States that was selling their cranes and other such had access to it, or even was aware of it. Plus, it was more of a vending machine than it was an amusement machine.
Right.
So the sales approach, everything had to be different than an amusement machine. And so I went over there, presented it to them. There was another company from Europe that was trying to get the exclusivity to it. We were able to get the exclusive contract. And I even covered my butt by saying that if they had production problems, that we could manufacture it in the U.S.
Okay.
And they would provide the drawings to us. Well, after we put in an order for 6 containers for the Regal movie theaters, we were in a bidding war with the other guys that I had brought over, and they had 320 possible locations that they were going to put them into, and we got 280 of the 320.
Okay.
And we tested it for 90 days, and the test ones worked perfect. So when we placed the order for the containers, they went into cost-cutting mode on the manufacturer's side, and they went with cheaper sensors, they went with cheaper this, cheaper that, and all of a sudden, even the handle to the sliding door that went up and down, they switched to an acrylic one that would literally break off.
Oh, wow.
And then you couldn't raise the door to get your cotton candy out.
All without not talking to you first.
Yes, they did all of this without our knowledge. And then when we started having the problems with the same people that tested it, that ordered literally 20 or 30 each, and then they started having all these problems, and they said, my prototype is still working just fine, and I'm buying these production models from you, and they're not working worth a darn. And then we traced on back and found out, yeah, they had done these changes without letting us know, without getting our approval, without doing any of that. And then they even flew over engineers to try to fix it, and they weren't able to do it. And that's when I learned that the things that you can't anticipate happening can happen and sink your whole business. I mean, my partner wanted to continue selling them, and he was from Mexico, and I said, no, we cannot continue selling something that we do not have faith in and know will work. And he said, well, then if we can't sell at least 20 machines per month, we can't keep our doors open. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I'm not sticking around to do that, because then we're going to have to send people out to repair these, and we're going to have unhappy customers, and word of mouth is going to kill us. And so I resigned my position, and 6 months later, they went under too. Yeah. So I guess I've closed down some of the best companies in the industry.
That's a strange pattern there, Brian.
I know. Well, the problem with startups, and I really delved heavy in startups. I was trying to get a home run. Okay.
Sure.
I wanted to have something that I could leave to the industry that would have my name associated with it.
Right.
And so I kept bringing startup companies' products to light, and a lot of times they weren't field tested. A lot of times they were undercapitalized. So I bounced around at a lot of different companies. And the cotton candy machine one was the last one that I went with that was a startup. And then I decided, you know what? I'd rather go with a good established product that I could still work with the people that I knew through the industry by selling them games and other stuff in the past. Everybody still trusted me because I didn't ever burn any bridges, and none of the companies that screwed people over, none of it could be traced to me. I kept my nose clean. I left a company if they were going to screw people over.
Right.
My reputation was more important than a job, because I figured I could always find another job. Even if it took, after the cotton candy thing, it took a year and a half for me to land a job. And luckily it was in the sector of the business that I know and love now, which is the debit card system. But I was patient, and I kept my reputation intact.
So that would be Core Cashless. Is that the first one you started at?
That's the first one I started with. And it was funny. I came in right at the time that they were transitioning from previous ownership. In fact, the previous owner ended up putting the business up as collateral for legal fees.
Okay.
And then the attorney ended up getting rid of him and getting rid of the other person that I had been working with there at the company. And so I knew time was short for me. And so I started looking around, and that's when I found that there were other companies in the industry, interviewed with them, and decided to switch to Sequoia.
Okay. All right. And another good company, and I'm sure you met some really good people there as well.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I got to admit, the people that I was working with at that company, my fellow coworkers, especially the ones down in South America, were absolutely amazing.
Sure.
It created problems for me here in the U.S. by not having people here in the U.S. to be able to help the customers. But they had some really good product. They were, they didn't have the monthly fees. They didn't have some of the other things that the competition was doing. And so I hitched my wagon up to them and was with them for 7 years.
Yep, and that's where you met me. You sold me a Sequoia system, and I'll tell you, I do like the Sequoia system. It's without a doubt, it's a good system. It's just I have some problems with communication with the company a little bit, especially after you left. But I will give shouts out to Violetta, wonderful person.
Amazing.
Diego's an amazing person. It's there's really good people there, just like you said, and I like it. Now, if I could go back and know what I know now, you know, I would have went a different direction. But I really can't complain about the Sequoia system.
No, every company has its pluses and minuses.
Sure.
And I've learned that through the years. Even as great as a company seems, a lot of times there's stuff that you're unaware of and you wouldn't know about. It could be the people. It could be something with the longevity of the product. I was with one that was a motion simulator manufacturer, and they had a really innovative product and really, really good, but it through wear and tear, all of a sudden it'd have all these little ball bearings rolling out from underneath, and the chair would all of a sudden move drastically to the left side and jerk up and down, and that's not what it was designed to do, but first impressions were amazing.
I bet.
So it can be problems with the product, it can be problems just with the people that you work with, or it can be problems with whatever that prohibits you from staying there.
Right.
And that's, to be with any company. It's rare when you go, gosh, this company is going to be great, I'm going to jump ship to them, and you find out that they're everything that you thought they were and then some.
Right. I find that the biggest killers of a great idea and a great product are poor management, unincluded ownership, and cost cutting. And we saw that with your cotton candy. It wasn't even you cutting the cost, it was just the manufacturer.
Yep. And that was after the order was placed.
Right.
And people make foolish things. I've said throughout my career, I was associated with a number of companies that had a great concept and horrible execution of a great idea.
Right.
And that sinks most of the companies. There have been so many companies that have come and gone, and it hasn't just been those that were cashing in and then moving on. Like, for example, Bally and Williams, they do pinballs, or not pinballs. They used to do the pinballs, and now they're doing the slot machines, and they're very successful at it. They just moved into a different thing. Even Universal with Mr. Do, they just kept coming out with title after title after title that had Mr. Do in it, like Mr. Do's Castle, Mr. Do's Wild Run, Do Run Run. Funny thing, I named those games, but it was because they would come out with something that was mediocre at best.
Sure.
And they changed the character to a little Mr. Do character. They had Mr. Do versus Unicorn at one place, at one time. And I was like, Mr. Do versus Unicorn? And you're hitting unicorns over the head with a hammer? And I remember Bill going, little girls are going to be picketing us out in front of our building. And so we changed it to Mr. Do's Castle, and we made the unicorns look like horned monsters instead of unicorns. But yeah, they were white, fluffy little unicorns running around and stuff at the time. That would have been really a poor execution of a good idea.
It's like making your Seal Smasher game.
Yes.
Yeah, I hear you.
But I mean, every company has its faults. Nobody is perfect, but it's how you deal with things and how you treat customers and how you work to making your company better. And that's why I was, 2 years ago, the offer came to go to work with Semnox, and I had been watching them for a number of years.
I was
because,
too.
Well, they had very, very interesting product that was innovative. They were the first ones with RFID in the industry, and even at my other company, we were saying, "Oh, well, that's just the buzzword in the industry. It's going to go away in no time." Well, not only did it not go away, everybody today, including all of our competitors, are going with RFID.
Right.
And it's refreshing to get with a company that you're thinking, gosh, they look so great. And then you get inside and you find out they're not only as good with the product as you were hoping and thinking, but the people. I mean, I've never been with a company where the product, the people, the services, and the pricing all came together. There are little or no deficiencies. And even with those deficiencies, I'll be honest with you, it's by far the best company in the industry that I have worked with also the best product.
Okay. Well, let's not jump too far ahead, because I do want to talk more about Semnox. But your tenure at Sokoa was kind of coming to an end, and then, very unfortunately, you and Amy had to go through something that no parent should ever have to go through. And
we lost my son Alan. He was killed walking to his work on the sidewalk
with a friend.
He was 5 weeks away from graduating with an accountant degree from Fort Lewis College in Durango. And he was 2 days after his 23rd birthday. And it was right after the amusement expo that was in Dallas. In fact, I was supposed to drive down Saturday morning, but I got back late Friday night. And we said, can we celebrate your birthday a week from now? And unfortunately, we never got the opportunity. Yeah, he was killed along with a gentleman who was visiting the United States from Italy,
Wow.
Marco Ricci. And the driver that went out of control after drinking, even though he was never found guilty of drunk driving. In fact, the charges were reduced to a misdemeanor and then dropped completely by the district attorney. So my son never even got his day in court. But yeah, it was one of those things that you just can't expect, and you definitely realize how fragile life is. And it just reminds you to hug your kids every day and tell them that you love them, because they may not be around.
So you did learn something that you had no idea Alan was doing. He was tutoring fellow students.
Yeah. He was given a posthumous degree, and at the graduation ceremony, they honored Alan. And I thought it was real nice, and I thought it was just because of the fact that they had lost one of theirs.
Right.
And at the end of it, a woman came up to us and said, "Thank you so much for your son." And we were like, "Oh, did one of your children know Alan?" And she said, "Well, yeah, he was tutoring my boy." And we said, "Tutoring?" And she said, "Yeah, if it wasn't for his help, my boy never would have graduated." And she said, "You didn't know?" And I said, "No." And She said, well, he was tutoring my son along with 5 other people.
Wow.
And it all went back to when he was a sophomore and he got C's and D's. And I said, if you don't take your grades seriously and start getting better grades, you're not going to get even an interview for a good job, let alone a good job.
Right.
And I said, you really got to buckle down and get better grades, or there's going to be a stack of applicants that you're not even going to make it into that stack. They're going to just put it away because they won't know you. They won't even give you a chance to let them know you. And he goes, well, Dad, they're really hard courses. And I said, well, yeah, college courses are difficult. And that's when you get tutoring or you ask for help from the teacher. And he goes, Dad, that's a sign of weakness. And I said, no, Alan, it's a sign of weakness if you need help and you're too proud or afraid to ask for it. And he said, oh, okay, I'll look into it. And that was the last conversation that we had about it. Unbeknownst to us, and this is through his roommate that told us, after that he went and found out that the school didn't have a tutoring program. They had an honors group that would help some people for extracurricular credit. They had no place to be able to study. The teachers were the ones that mostly helped the students, like in Alan's case. But then they had study groups, and Alan started participating in the study groups and then started, it turns out, leading the study groups and then helping the students that were falling behind in class. And so he used to complain to me about having no spare time, and I always gave the fatherly advice of, well, then you must not be managing your time properly, just like my dad used to say, because if you do it right, you'll have extra time. And he never came back to me and said, well, Dad, it's because I'm working at a job and I'm going to school full time and I'm also tutoring 5 kids. So
Commendable.
it was kind of an eye-opening experience for me, because probably never would have even known about it if he hadn't died.
Right.
Because he never shared it with us.
So you there's a foundation now, correct?
Yeah, what we did was we talked to the dean at the school, as well as other things about their needs and how we could help keep his memory not only living on at the university, but we could help other students like Alan was. And so we decided, instead of doing a scholarship, which I had originally thought would be the thing we would do, we decided to do a tutor center.
Wow.
And thanks to the generosity of so many of the people in our industry, including all of my competitors, they all donated, and we were able to do a tutor center at the university that now has Alan's name there, as well as his story on the computers that people can access to find out who Alan Duke was. Because most of the time when you see stuff like that, it's some old guy that died in his 80s or 90s and left all of his wealth to the school.
Right. This was a student.
I wanted them to know that this was a kid that was like them.
And that's gonna outlive all of us. That's amazing.
Well, it helped us get through it too. Sure. I dove deep into work, but knowing that there was something that could keep his memory living on, and provide us with some closure
Right.
was really important to us. So thanks for even bringing it up and talking about it.
Yes, of course, Brian. If somebody wanted to give to it now, is there a website or?
Yeah, there is. The website is, we just switched it over from one provider, and we're in the process of making some changes, but people can go to and it is a 501c3, fully 100% of all donations go to the center and running it. We don't pay employee salaries. We don't pay board member salaries. Everything is on a totally volunteer basis, and it just goes to buy all the equipment for the room. And it's at Fort Lewis College, and it keeps his memory living on, but it's the Alan Duke Memorial Foundation. That's the name of our group, and it's alandukefoundation.com. If anybody would like to go, you can make donations online, or you can also email me on my Gmail account, brianduke2012@gmail.com. And anything would be appreciated, no matter how small or large.
Brian, I'd like to expound on that a little bit. Some of the listeners here probably don't even know, or they do know, but I know a lot of them buy off of Amazon.com, myself being one. I buy a lot of stuff on Amazon. You could go to smile.amazon.com and make that your Amazon page, and you could choose the Allen Foundation, the Alan Duke Memorial Foundation, or any other foundation that you choose. But that's what I do.
Yes, it's listed there.
Yes, and that's what I do. And
I can't thank you enough, because that's a way of giving without having to spend anything extra. There's a lot of people that use Amazon to save money because they don't have enough money to be able to donate and such, and a percentage of everything that they buy of that amount goes to our foundation. And it's definitely a great way of being able to give when things are tight, like especially now during COVID.
Right. Smile.amazon.com. Definitely check that out.
And it's smile with an S.
So you, on the brighter side, you do have somebody following your footsteps in the industry.
Yes, I do. My daughter Bree works for Betson. In fact, I took her to a trade show in London, and we were at the EAG show there, and she just happened, and this was about January of 2019, and she was going around with me throughout the show, and she goes, "Gosh, this really is a neat industry." She goes, "I really wish I could get into it." And I said, "What? Really?" And she goes, "I've just been laying hints for the last 10 years.
Come on,
And
Dad.
I was like, wow, yeah, should be a little more paying attention than I was. But it was great. She got an opportunity at Betson for an interview. And the funny thing is, she earned it all on her own. It had nothing to do with me, which made me even prouder.
Right.
In fact, the HR person had told her that it wasn't really a great fit, and they had other people they were interested in, and they couldn't pay her what she was already making. And then she told me, "Well, I guess I lied. I got a second interview." And she interviewed with them, and the next day had a third interview, and then was hired on board, and she's really, really happy. They're a good group of people. She loves the industry also, and it's nice to carry that on. I never thought of a father as wanting to have my kids in the same industry and stuff, but now I understand the pride that you feel when your child goes, yeah, you know what? I like this industry too. I like what you've been doing, and then you see them emulating you and stuff. It's really kind of cool.
It is so cool, Brian. I'm smiling ear to ear just thinking about it right now. Not only that, but you go to a trade show and your daughter's there. How cool is that?
I know that was the neatest thing is a lot of people didn't know my daughter was in it, and then they would meet her and go, Duke, huh, wait a minute. And one of the best photos I have was when she went to the IAPA after she was hired, and she was working the booth, and got a father-daughter photo of her right there. It was so neat. And getting to send people over there, go, remember me talking about my daughter Bree? You can go see her over there.
So you just saw her over the weekend at that Creative Work show, right?
Yes, well, I went to the Creative Work show, and then she actually had a problem with the car, so I ended up continuing out there and dropping off a vehicle for her to be able to use.
Oh, what kind of vehicle was it?
It's a 2014 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid.
Oh, wow. What a good dad.
She's a good kid, and, you know, there's
it's worth it, isn't
nothing
it?
I'd rather do than help out when, like my parents did for me. I mean, God, I'm not even sure I'd be here today if it had been for all the stuff that they helped.
You and me both, brother. I'm telling you, you know, it's great. And you're a good dad. That's really awesome.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
So
You are too, man.
Thank you. So how was the show? It was actually not a creative work show. I guess we should call it what it really
Amusement 360.
Yes.
It is put on by Creative Works.
Yes.
And what's amazing is, you know, I've been to other ones throughout the year that had in-person stuff as they were trying to ramp up. And even some of the trade shows, you know, had sparser attendance. Creative Works got 70 people to show up in person.
Nice.
In Indianapolis.
Right.
And not when the Indy 500 was running or anything, no football, no basketball, no anything else like this. It was strictly them getting people to come in, and the sharing of knowledge, the presentations, the discussions, everything. It was really very impressive, and kudos to them because we weren't a sponsor before. We became a sponsor just this year, and it was so great to finally be at an Amusement 360 from the inside looking out rather than the outside looking in.
Great people there too, you know, at Creative Works.
They really are, and boy, do they put on an entertaining conference. I sat in for majority of it, even though I had phone calls coming in and other stuff like that. I would just quickly excuse myself, go out for a little while, come back on in. They really are an amazing group of people.
Yes, they are. I have not been able to get to an Amusement 360 yet. I've really wanted to go. Just things happen. But they did come to the lodge there, and you know, I got to talk to all of them. They come and visited me, and what a great bunch of people. I'll
tell you,
recommend them.
They allow sponsors to invite guests to it, and I will open that up to not only you but anybody else that's listening that ever wants to go to one. just let us know, and we would be honored to have you there as our guest.
Great. So, obviously, you're going to be at IAPA this year.
Oh, yeah. Really looking forward to that. I'm actually, God, in between now and then, I'm going to be at the trampoline park show. I'm going to be at the cruise line show.
Wow.
I'm going to be at AAMA's annual meeting in Chicago. I'm going to be at a bunch of things in between, including the East Coast Bowling Centers Conference in Atlantic City in October. And then, yep, IAPA, and really looking forward to that. I think they're going to have a tremendous turnout there. Amusement Expo was outstanding. Bowl Expo was incredibly strong.
Good.
Smaller maybe in size from the number of exhibitors or the size of an exhibitor booth, but just crammed with people, and everybody was there chomping at the bit to get back out there and start doing things again. It was really great to see. And everybody that I talked to in the industry that has been operating our system or whatever is all reporting record numbers, even pre-COVID.
I won't hold you to it, but I'd love to have you over for the MCMOA, yearly meeting, October 4th and 5th.
I have that week open.
Do you?
So
Okay.
I will definitely be there, and it'll be hosted at Bavarian Inn again, correct?
That's correct. And I'm actually gonna be a presenter there this year. I'm gonna give everybody a tour and a little bit of history of the city of Frankenmuth and the lodge. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Oh, that's cool. It was great the last time, and it was really neat to be able to see the people then. I've got a feeling that you're going to have probably double the turnout at least, if not more.
Yep. And for the listeners, it's the Michigan Coin Machine Operators Association. I'm on the board there, and whenever I get a chance to get Brian to come out to visit, I always ask him because it's such a joy to have him there, especially when he brings Amy.
Well, thanks, and I will definitely do that this time.
Awesome.
Again. And I'll tell you, if anybody hasn't gone out to Frankenmuth, it is one of the coolest places that you'll find in the Midwest. The whole town is just magical.
Thank you for that. So, Brian, tell me about Semnox. What do they got going on? I've been hearing a lot of good things and seen some press releases.
Well, I'll tell you, it's amazing. We've got so many things going on, and what I really liked about Semnox was they listen, and then they act upon what they hear from the people. And it's not just me. I mean, during COVID, a lot of other companies laid people off or curled up in the corner and cried and hoped that it would end soon and things would get back to normal. And Semnox took a proactive stance. During that time, we went from just one kiosk to offering 6 different kiosks because the need really was there, especially with COVID and the reluctance of people to want to talk to somebody wearing a mask. Am I going to get infected? Am I going to get sick from these people? That type of thing. And then to have instead something that doesn't replace an employee but helps the few remaining employees that you had do their job and do it properly with a redemption kiosk, a food and beverage kiosk, a customer kiosk to even register your cards rather than tying up the lone POS that's open at that time because nobody else is able to be hired that's reliable to work at your place, or the cost of raising the minimum wage or wages in the state for employees that you have to pay more to now than you did before when you're not able to even keep those people around sometimes. Kiosks help out in those things. We're going to be showing at the trampoline park, we're going to be demoing our Radian Wristband, which is a brand new concept, and we waited until we had the patents applied for and such, but it's actually a wristband that will change color. It'll go from green to yellow when their time is starting to run out to red when their time is out.
Wow.
It'll even be able to give notifications. Like, for example, if there's a birthday party that's going on and the kids are playing in the trampoline park or the miniature golf or something on time play, it will actually send a notice saying, Brian, cake is being served in the party room, and you can pause the play as the parent, so that if I had 2 hours of play and I'm on an hour and a half and I go upstairs for half an hour, I can stop it at the hour and a half and still have a half hour of play left on my timer. That's something that we're going to be heavily promoting throughout 2022, but we're introducing it at the trampoline park show in Las Vegas, the 12th through it's the 14th through the 17th.
Okay.
And or 14th through the 16th. And then we'll be promoting the heck out of it at IAPA, of course, and getting it on out there to everybody. But it's just been taking a little while to not only finish the development and get everything right, but the patents applied for and all the testing and everything done that needed to be done before we felt comfortable launching.
One of the things that I really like about Semnox, it's not a debit card company. It's an all-encompassing company. It's got your food and beverage, the POS, everything. You guys are constantly branching out to different aspects of the industry and beyond. And
yeah, it's funny. It surprises even me because when I came on board, I kept referring to us as a debit card company, and it had to be drilled into me. We're a venue management company.
Great term.
And while a lot of people don't understand what we talk about when we say solutions, it is far more than just a debit card system. And we do a lot more things than I did with any other company in the past or any of our competitors do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really nice to be that innovative, that we think of what customers really need in their place, and then we go about solving their problems for them by delivering something that they may not need to go outside for. Like, for example, food and beverage. Our food and beverage is full-serve restaurant, not just snack bar. And a lot of people have to pay extra to Micros or Aloha or others. Right. They can do that if they want. But the integration when it comes to those type of companies and software is very basic. You can sell a card from their POS, and you can accept a card at their POS as payment. And that's really it. The reporting, everything else like that is very, very basic. In fact, in most cases, it just shows up as Embed or Intercard or SCO or Semnox Cash when it's a basic integration. And then you have to look at those other reports that belong to that company to be able to really delve into it and see where all this money really was spent.
Right.
And so the nice thing is, when it's all under one roof, you don't have to worry about integration. I mean, we do thorough integration as well with certain partners.
Sure.
And the first one that we chose was CenterEdge. And that's one that we're going to be announcing at IAPA, that we've got the integration fully finished. But that's a thorough integration, not a basic.
Right. So they get the good reporting and everything out of it.
Bingo. And what you can do on our system, you can do on theirs, and vice versa.
And I will tell you, I don't have CenterEdge, but I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and they really like it. And if they
what's funny?
if they
I
really like
lost
it,
customers. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
They really like it, and they think, well, I don't want to replace my CenterEdge, and they don't have to. You guys will work hand in hand, pretty mesh with them, right?
Yes, CenterEdge has a huge number of customers. They're really the biggest one in our industry for POS, and they do a lot of things that regular POSs for a lot of companies are not able to do, like ticketing, assigned seating, full-serve restaurant, all those type of things too. And I didn't want to be a competitor with them. I wanted to be a partner with them. And so we developed a strategic partnership with them. They were the very first ones that Semnox really did any sort of full, thorough integration with, because there really wasn't the need previous to that. And while there wasn't a need with CenterEdge, they are so well respected and liked within the industry that I didn't want to be convincing somebody that my card system was the best, and also my POS was the best, and all these other services were the best. I would rather they take a look at everything and decide what's best for them.
Right.
And we forged a very nice. With other companies, I actually lost customers to the competition because they did at least the basic integration with CenterEdge, and we didn't.
Right, just like a basic API.
Yeah, when people are familiar with something and they've used them for a long time, they don't want to switch. And you have to respect that and understand it too.
Right.
It's a lot to learn a system, especially one like Semnox. We call it the parfait system. And the background on the name is it's like parfait. We like the idea of going along with something that was similar to the Android jelly bean or ice cream and things like that.
Sure.
And a parfait, you can dig down through all these various layers as deep as you want. You can finish the whole thing if you want, but there's layer upon layer upon layer. And that's really the way our software is designed in our system. You can utilize it just for the arcade, but that's sort of like getting a Ferrari and driving your kid to school in a 25 mile per hour zone.
Gotcha.
Okay. It's impressive. It does the job.
People's heads will turn.
Yep. But it doesn't fully utilize all the functions that you have with a Ferrari. Well, it's the same way with a card system. A lot of people forget that they can bundle stuff together, that they can use it to manage the attractions as well. If every penny that is used in the location goes on the card, then every penny is accounted for within the system. But if you're only using part of it and you're not fully utilizing the whole thing of a card system, you're leaving money on the table, as well as probably costing yourself extra money because those services more than likely are offered also through us as well, so that at least you can decide, who do I want to go with? Do I want to keep paying Micros and Aloha all this exorbitant amount of money, or do I want to use your food and beverage? And the food and beverage is already thrown into the package, so it's like anything extra that you spend with Micros or Aloha is wasted money, unless you just happen to love the Micros and Aloha system.
Right.
And then all you're going to get is a basic integration, because it's dependent upon your partner on the software, because it's their software. They have to do the work. And most of the time, they don't want to spend the time or effort to do anything more than a basic. Center Edge, I love the fact that they insisted upon thorough integration.
Love it. So, Brian, I see so many people, like in the forums, other places, people call. I want to get a card debit system, and everybody's all over them. Hey, go with Tagapo, go with Intercard, Embed. All I can do is give my perception when it comes to these things. The 3 card systems that I looked at when I first was looking at them was Intercard, Embed, and Sequoia.
Mm-hmm.
I went with Sequoia, and I think I made the best choice. I think I'm happy with the choice I made with the 3 of those companies. Now, at the time, I did not even know about Semnox. I wish I did, because I could tell you this. I love just the presentation, the power, and the look of the readers. I like the software, what it can do. It's just powerful. So my opinion and my perspective is, if you're looking for a card system, at the very least, get a presentation from Brian Duke. Do your due diligence. Look at all of them, because right now I see there's some card systems that are just having some problems. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, but Semnox isn't one of them. Do your due diligence. Talk to people in the industry. Ask them their opinions, and their opinions are going to vary from mine for sure. But doing your due diligence, what's right for you, is talking to all these companies, getting samples of reports, getting presentations. That's what it's all about. And if I was redoing it today, and I probably will, I'd go with Semnox.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And, I'll be honest. I won't say that Semnox was the best kept secret, because they've had Chuck E. Cheese as a client since 2016.
Right.
And they've kept Chuck E. Cheese so happy, in fact, helped them reemerge from bankruptcy stronger than they were before. But they weren't one to point the spotlight on themselves. That's always been something that I love doing with any company I was with, is shining the spotlight on the company I was with. And they shine bright. They really excel. And right. I am so proud to say that so far, Semnox hasn't lost a customer to the competition. But I have been working with a lot of customers that used to have a different card system. Semnox is different. Semnox is, once you find out everything that they're capable of doing, it really has that wow factor. And that's what I really love about it. It's easy for me to call attention to somebody that can wow.
Yep, without a doubt. And I think that the reason that I'd never heard of Semnox when I was getting my card system is because of Chuck E. Cheese. I think they had their hands full in the first couple of years with Chuck E. Cheese alone.
Yeah, they didn't want to grow too big too fast. They didn't want to bring in customers that would be more than they could handle in capabilities and other such like that. And they've kept everybody happy to where, you know, I even at the other company, I lost customers to Semnox. And I'll tell you, they've been very, very low key, and I've been the one that's been pushing them to hire more people, be able to. We have to have the infrastructure in place, and we both agreed on that. But they've been doing that. They've actually been hiring people during COVID, not laying people off. We've been building our product, our services, expanding things to where we're reemerging from COVID so much better than we were. So I'm really proud to be associated with a company like that.
And it shows for sure. So, you know, even the brightest spotlight that you could shine on, I'm sure there's some challenges for you right now. And maybe the challenges are you're getting too busy. You know,
I am a little inundated, but
sure.
You know what? Challenge accepted. Until I can't handle it and do a good job for the customers, I'm going to keep on pushing.
I'm wondering if this trend is going to continue through next year. I'll tell you this, Brian, that sales are just incredible right now. And I think it's a trend across the country where, you know, I'm beating my sales records by astronomical amounts every month. And I'm hoping that this is going to keep trending into the future, but is the shoe going to drop? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, it's kind of funny, at least with the debit card system side of the business. I think the reason why the companies are all scrambling, having their hands full and everything right now is because a lot of people held off over the last couple of years. Plus, it's no longer a case of should I get one? It's I've got to have one.
Right.
And all the new people that are coming in that I've met at foundations, at Trainertainment, at Amusement 360, they're all not even thinking, should I go with a card system? It's, I got to have a card system, which one? So people are making up for lost time on that as far as buying systems. As far as the public goes, I think that while there was a bit of a pent-up frustration release for people to get out and be able to do stuff again, they'd been quarantined for too darn long. I think that may wane a little bit, but I think that with all the new places opening, and they're no longer the small places, and they're no longer just a trampoline park or a bowling center, they're evolving into FECs. It's going to be something that's going to continue to grow, and people are going to find that a multitude of fun at the location is even better than taking off to a vacation. It's something that they can do locally without breaking the bank. I mean, heck, when I was looking to travel down to Mexico, we were offered a condo for free. And the airfares were just freaking ridiculous.
Right.
It's the way of the world now. It's post-COVID life. And it's really frustrating for a lot of people when they look and go, even though it's free, it's going to cost me $4,000 in airfare. I don't have that type of money right now. I'm going to have to cut back. Then they take the kids to Dave & Buster's or InterQuest or Bavarian Inn or any of the other places where they know that they can have a blast at less cost than that.
Right. And the people that are on the fence about the card system, you're going to increase your revenue to up to 30%. You're no longer going to have to sling those 70-pound buckets of tokens to fill token machines. You're not going to have to deal with tickets anymore. I tell you, it's so amazing. You know, that first week after you get a card system and you don't have to do, you know, token machine fills. You don't have to be out there putting tickets in all the machines. It's huge, huge, huge.
Yes, it's
Worth
not
every
only
penny,
money saving, it's money making.
without a doubt.
And you know what's funny is we have a lot of people. I mean, the 30% is a standard, actually kind of a low standard for a location going from tokens and tickets to a card system and using the e-tickets. But we've had a lot of people that have even switched from another card system that was antiquated or not doing nearly as much and still finding a 30% revenue increase from what they were having before. So utilize the card system to its full capacity. Do as much as possible with the card system. And your revenue is just going to
Skyrocket.
jump up and you're going to be really happy.
Without a doubt. Well, we've been at this for over an hour.
My gosh. Sorry.
No worries. No worries. It's been an honor and a pleasure, really. I want to ask you a couple more questions before I let you go, Brian.
Certainly. What's that?
Where do you see the industry in 5 years?
Oh, man. You know, it's funny, having been in it for 40 years and seeing the ups and downs and seeing the new technology being added, some of it failing. I mean, I was with Motion Sims, and Motion Sims really never took off, but VR certainly did. And I was with VR way back when it was in its infancy stage, and it was really too soon because they didn't have product for the they didn't have good product, I should say, for the amusement industry that would survive and was durable and had game content. It's really exciting to see where everything is going today. I think that this is probably the closest period of time that I've seen to the boom that I used to see back in the early 80s when you could put video games in an old gas station and turn it into a 6 or 7 piece arcade that would make you a bunch of money.
Right.
It's not the same because you really have to do it smartly. You have to do it in such a way that you provide multiple entertainment to draw in a wider range of people, basically the shotgun approach rather than just hitting a target in the center for one particular entertainment. I've seen things going from the big stuff is attractive, but I can't afford it, to now everybody doing the deluxe stuff, because the deluxe stuff earns and you can charge more. I see a lot of people's resistance to buying expensive VR by how much they make on it. I mean, some of the numbers that I hear that people make from some of the equipment is just unbelievable. But you once again need to choose what it is that your passions are and match the entertainment to that. If you're not the least bit into bowling and you don't have the knowledge of bowling and you won't hire somebody that loves bowling and is going to build it into a true business, it's going to die on the vine in your place. Same thing with, like dart leagues. Dart leagues make a lot of money. dart machines left alone in a bar do not make money.
Right.
Very few people play it. So now that everybody is sharing more and more knowledge and information on how to make money, I think the industry is positioned better than they've been in a long time, because there are so many places like Amusement 360 and foundations and others to not only be presented with information, but talk with other people that have gone through it, and they help you to step around the landmines. So it's a great time to be in the industry, and there's a lot of new blood coming on in too, which is exciting.
I think you said it best with the shotgun analogy, because if I was going to do it with things that I like, the whole place would be full of pinballs. I'd be in debt and I'd never make any money. So,
but you do have a great collection.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yep. So 5 years, I agree with you. The VR is where it's at, but you said, a couple of years back it was in its infancy. I still think it's in the toddler years. And I think there's a lot more coming. And in 5 years, I could see where the systems are going to be really getting knocked out of the park. They're going to be really amazing.
I have to agree with you on that too.
All right, Brian. Well, thank you so very much for coming on the show. And wow, what a bunch of knowledge. I've learned a lot tonight, and I hope that you would come back.
Well, I appreciate it, and I would love to be able to not only talk with you, but anybody else that would like, feel free to give me a call. I put my cell phone number out on the card. I hope you don't mind if I leave it with anybody that would like to ever talk, even if it's just about the industry. I've got some friends that have been long timers in the industry, and it's great talking about the good old days. I love that. But please feel free, call me anytime. I carry my cell phone with me all over. It's 510-376-9607.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. This is Tim with FECTalk.com with the master, Brian Duke.